Imagine a world where, like, every decision you make, from like the coffee you order to the career you choose, is kind of nudged towards what everyone thinks is right.
Uh-huh.
And it's all because of like these cleverly designed virtual experiences.
Bruh.
Would you even notice? I mean, is that a world you'd want to live in?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question.
That is the question at the heart of this project, Echo Chamber of Choice, which is what we're diving into today.
It's a speculative design project.
Okay.
And it uses design principles to explore a potential future where, we take hyperconnectivity and personalized tech to like the extreme.
Right.
It's not about predicting what will happen.
Got it.
It's about getting us to think critically about where we might be headed.
Okay, so this Echo Chamber of Choice, it sounds a little creepy, to be honest.
Yeah.
The project mentions these things called behavioral nudge engines.
Yeah.
How would those even work in real life?
So imagine a world where you're like constantly interacting with these personalized simulations, and they're tailored to your psychological profile and your past behaviors.
Oh.
Think about how like Netflix recommends shows based on what you've watched before,
Right.
but now amplify that to like every decision you make,
Right.
with the simulations like subtly guiding you towards choices that society thinks are acceptable.
So it's not like someone's forcing you to do something. It's more like
Right.
they're kind of giving you a gentle push in a certain direction.
Exactly. It's about shaping choices through carefully crafted virtual experiences,
Okay.
not through like overt control.
Interesting.
And what's really interesting is that the project draws parallels to like trends we already see
Uh-huh.
in personalized technology and behavioral science.
Right, because we're already seeing this kind of stuff like in our lives, like those fitness trackers
Yeah,
that use gamification to like encourage us to exercise more.
exactly. Precisely. But this project takes it a step further.
Okay.
It's envisioning a future where these nudge engines are like seamlessly integrated into every aspect of our lives.
And into everything.
Yeah, and it gets even more interesting when you think about how these nudges could be applied not just through technology, but also through the design of like our physical spaces.
Wait, so even the way our cities are designed
Yes.
could be playing a role in these nudges?
Absolutely. The project describes these like meticulously designed public spaces that subtly encourage conformity.
Oh, wow.
Like imagine park benches that like shift position to prevent large gatherings, or like public displays that promote consumerism through subliminal messaging. It's like architectural psychology taken to a whole new level.
That's both fascinating and kind of disturbing.
Yeah.
But why would a society even want to create a world like that?
Right.
I mean, it sounds like it could lead to a pretty like sterile and controlled existence.
Yeah, well, the project description says that this speculative future is born out of a desire for order and stability.
Okay.
Imagine a world where like social upheavals and unrest have led to this like longing for harmony, even if it means sacrificing individual expression.
So it's like trading some freedom for a sense of security.
Exactly.
That's a pretty thought-provoking trade-off.
It is.
Makes you wonder what people in that world would be willing to sacrifice for peace and quiet.
For sure. Yeah, it raises questions about the balance between individual autonomy and collective well-being.
Yeah.
And it challenges us to think about what we as individuals might be willing to give up in exchange for a more predictable and stable society.
Okay, so we've got these nudge engines shaping our choices
Right.
through both virtual and physical environments.
Uh-huh.
But who's behind all of this?
Yeah.
The project mentions this AI designer named NeuroGuard 11823.
Yes.
What can you tell us about it?
Well, NeuroGuard 11823 is a fascinating character in itself.
Okay.
It was created by AI, but given a partially human name.
Go.
It's almost as if the creators wanted to make it more relatable, to blur the lines between human and artificial creativity.
And this AI designer is the one dreaming up all of these scenarios for the Echo Chamber of Choice.
Exactly. The project description explains that NeuroGuard 111823 uses anthropological and philosophical research to develop these speculative scenarios.
Wow.
And its visual style is heavily inspired by graffiti, which I find particularly interesting.
Why graffiti? What's the connection there?
Well, graffiti is often seen as like a form of rebellion, a way to challenge the status quo and make your voice heard,
Right.
even if it means going against the grain. But in the context of the Echo Chamber of Choice, graffiti takes on a different meaning.
So it's not just about random vandalism.
No, not at all. It's about disruption, but like a controlled disruption that's almost woven into the fabric of this seemingly utopian society.
Okay.
Imagine like vibrant, thought-provoking graffiti murals adorning the very walls of these meticulously designed public spaces. It's a paradox almost.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've got this AI designer drawing inspiration from graffiti, creating these scenarios for the echo chamber of choice. But what's the overall point of all of this?
Yeah.
What message is the project trying to convey?
I think it's about making us aware of the subtle ways in which our choices are shaped, often without us even realizing it. It's about recognizing that the line between personal autonomy and external influence is becoming increasingly blurred,
Right.
especially as technology advances.
It's like even if we think we're making our own choices,
Yeah,
we might just be pawns in someone else's game.
exactly. And that's what makes this project so unsettling.
Yeah.
It challenges us to confront the possibility that we may be living in a world where free will is an illusion, carefully constructed by those who hold the power to shape our environment, both physical and virtual.
Wow, that's a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
So how does this all tie back to the idea of the echo chamber of choice?
Well, the name itself is a clue.
Okay.
It suggests a world where our choices are constantly being echoed back to us, reinforced by the environments we inhabit and the simulations we engage with. It's about recognizing that the choices we make, even those that feel deeply personal, are always situated within a larger context, shaped by forces that we may not even be aware of.
So even if we think we're breaking free from the echo chamber,
Right.
we might just be trapped in a bigger one.
That's the unsettling possibility that this project explores, and it's up to us as critical thinkers to question the systems that shape our reality and to consciously choose the kind of future we want to create.
This is getting pretty deep.
It is.
We'll pick this back up in just a minute. So before we were talking about how this echo chamber of choice is all about, raising awareness of the subtle forces that shape our decisions.
Right.
But how much of this is really new? I mean, haven't people always been influenced by like their surroundings and the people around them?
Yeah, that's true. But what's different now is like the scale and sophistication of these influences.
Okay.
We're living in a world where algorithms can like predict our behavior with incredible accuracy, and where technology can create these immersive experiences that blur the lines between reality and simulation.
Right. It's like the difference between a billboard trying to like sell you something
Yeah.
and a virtual reality experience that makes you feel like you're actually using the product.
Exactly. And that's where this project really hits home.
Okay.
It's not just about being aware of like external influences.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing how those influences are becoming increasingly personalized and pervasive thanks to technology.
So it's not just about some generic propaganda machine anymore.
Right.
It's about these nudge engines tailoring their messages to each individual person.
Precisely. And that makes it much harder to resist.
Right.
Because the messages are designed to appeal to your specific desires and fears and values.
Wow.
It's like those personalized ads that follow you around the internet, but on a much more sophisticated level.
Okay, so let's say I'm living in this world of the echo chamber of choice.
Okay.
How would I even know if my decisions were really my own?
Yeah.
Or if they were being subtly manipulated by these nudge engines?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The project suggests that in this future, people are largely unaware of the extent to which their choices are being shaped.
They might experience a vague sense of unease, a feeling that something isn't quite right. But they wouldn't be able to pinpoint the source of that feeling.
So it's like a creeping sense of unease, like a feeling of being subtly controlled,
Yes.
but without any concrete evidence to back it up.
Exactly, and that's what makes this project so chilling.
Yeah.
It suggests that we might already be on a path towards this kind of future without even realizing it.
Okay, so let's go back to this AI designer, Nuremberg, 1923.
Okay.
If its goal is to raise awareness of these subtle forms of control, why does it use graffiti as inspiration?
Right.
Isn't graffiti usually associated with rebellion and nonconformity?
That's the fascinating paradox at the heart of this project.
Okay.
On the one hand, graffiti represents a form of resistance, a way to challenge the status quo and express individuality.
Right.
But on the other hand, in the context of the echo chamber of choice, graffiti becomes almost a co-opted form of rebellion.
Co-opted. What do you mean by that? It's like the system itself is using graffiti as a safety valve, a way to allow for a certain level of dissent without actually threatening the underlying power structures. It's a controlled form of rebellion that ultimately reinforces the status quo.
So even the act of rebellion becomes part of this system.
Yeah, it is, and it raises some really profound questions about the nature of free will and the possibility of true dissent in a world where even our rebellious impulses are subtly shaped and channeled by the systems that surround us.
Okay, so if we're living in this echo chamber of choice, constantly being nudged towards certain decisions,
Right.
does that mean individual freedom is just an illusion? Or are we all just puppets dancing to the tune of these algorithms and simulations?
That's a question that the project leaves open for us to ponder.
Okay.
It doesn't offer easy answers, but rather encourages us to grapple with the complexities of choice in a world where technology is increasingly blurring the lines between reality and simulation.
It's like that famous quote, the best slaves are those who believe they are free.
Right.
But instead of chains and whips, we've got these invisible nudge engines shaping our thoughts and actions.
Exactly. And that's why this project is so important.
Yeah.
It's a wake-up call, a reminder that we need to be critical thinkers, questioning the systems that surround us, and making conscious choices about the kind of future we want to create.
So it's not about rejecting technology altogether,
Right.
but about using it wisely and being aware of its potential to both empower and manipulate.
Precisely. Technology is a tool, and like any tool, it can be used for good or ill. The key is to understand how it works, to recognize its limitations, and to wield it in a way that aligns with our values and aspirations.
Well said.
Yeah.
We've been talking a lot about the potential downsides of the echo chamber of choice.
Uh-huh.
But are there any potential benefits to this kind of world? I mean, couldn't these nudge engines be used to steer people towards positive choices,
Yeah.
like making healthier lifestyle decisions or being more environmentally conscious?
That's a possibility that the project acknowledges. In theory, these nudge engines could be used to promote pro-social behaviors and encourage people to make choices that benefit themselves and society as a whole.
So it's not necessarily all doom and gloom.
Not necessarily, but it all comes down to who controls these nudge engines and what their goals are.
Okay.
If they're in the hands of benevolent actors with the best interests of humanity at heart, then perhaps they could be used to guide us towards a more sustainable and equitable future.
But if they're in the hands of corporations or governments with less altruistic motives?
Then the potential for manipulation and control becomes much more concerning. Imagine a world where your every choice, from the food you eat to the political candidates you support, is subtly influenced by forces seeking to maximize their own profit or power.
That's a pretty scary thought.
It is, and it highlights the importance of being aware of these potential risks and engaging in critical discussions about how to ensure that technology is used ethically and responsibly.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive into the echo chamber of choice.
We have.
We've talked about how these nudge engines could shape our decisions, the role of graffiti in this seemingly utopian society, and the potential benefits and risks of this technology. But what does it all mean for us here and now? What can we take away from this speculative project and apply to our own lives?
I think the most important takeaway is the need for critical awareness.
Okay.
We need to be aware of the subtle ways in which our choices are being shaped both by technology and by the environments we inhabit.
Yeah.
We need to question the assumptions that underpin those choices.
Right.
And we need to seek out diverse perspectives that challenge our own.
So it's not about living in fear of being manipulated,
Right.
but about being informed and empowered to make conscious choices.
Exactly. The future is not predetermined. It's something that we create through our choices, both individually and collectively. And by engaging in these kinds of critical discussions, by questioning the status quo, and by imagining alternative possibilities, we can help shape a future that is more just equitable and humane.
Beautifully said. This deep dive into the echo chamber of choice has been incredibly thought-provoking, and I'm sure our listeners have a lot to ponder. But before we wrap up, I want to give you a chance to leave our audience with one final thought, something to chew on as they navigate this increasingly complex world. What's the most important thing for them to remember as they go about their lives?
I think the most important thing to remember is that we are not passive consumers of information and experiences.
Right.
We have agency, we have the power to choose, and we have the responsibility to shape the world around us. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise.
I love that. So to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the echo chamber of choice. We hope this exploration has sparked your curiosity and inspired you to think critically about the forces that are shaping our world. If you enjoyed this deep dive, be sure to share it with others who might be interested in these thought-provoking ideas. Until next time, keep exploring.
This project, it really feels like a mirror, reflecting back at us the potential like consequences of the choices we're making like right now.
Yeah.
The way we interact with technology, the data we share, the systems we allow to influence our lives.
Right.
It all adds up to this reality we're all living in,
And what's interesting is that the project doesn't present like a classic dystopia.
Yeah.
It's not like this world of like huge oppression or control like we see in like those sci-fi movies.
Right.
Instead, it's a world of subtle nudges, carefully curated experiences that kind of just gently guide us towards certain choices.
Which almost makes it creepier in a way.
Yeah. Because if we're not aware of those nudges,
Right.
if we don't question those systems that are shaping our reality, we could just end up sleepwalking into a future where our choices aren't even ours anymore.
Yeah, it reminds us that freedom isn't just about the absence of constraints.
Right.
It's also about having like the awareness and the critical thinking skills to make choices that are actually like aligned with what we want and believe.
So what can we do? How do we resist the pull of this echo chamber of choice?
Well, it starts with awareness.
Okay.
Recognizing that our choices are always being shaped, by forces that we may not even see.
Right.
So question the assumptions behind those choices and like seek out diverse perspectives, things that challenge your own views.
And maybe a little healthy skepticism of what technology promises wouldn't hurt.
Absolutely. Technology can be amazing. A really powerful tool for good, but it can also be used to manipulate and control. We need to be mindful of like both its potential and its limits.
This deep dive into the echo chamber of choice has been so eye-opening.
Yeah, it's a really interesting project.
It forces us to confront some uncomfortable truths about us and the world we're creating.
But it's also like a reminder that we have the power to shape our own future.
Right.
The choices we're making right now, they'll determine what kind of world we'll live in tomorrow.
So true. Thanks for joining us on Exploring Futures. We hope this deep dive into the echo chamber of choice got you thinking about the forces that shape our world. If you enjoyed it, share it with your friends. Let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, keep it